Welcome to the world's countries by boring travel and geography for sleep. Tonight, we're continuing our journey through all the countries of the world. One country at a time. One quiet episode at a time. Slowly, gently, and without any rush. In our last episode, we wandered through the desert landscapes of Oman, among frankincense trees, silent dunes, and thousand-year-old water channels. This time, we're going somewhere greener. Somewhere with jungles, volcanoes, beaches, and more languages than you might expect. Tonight's country is Cameroon. As always, we try our best to be accurate, but small mistakes can happen. If you notice anything that's incorrect, feel free to leave a gentle comment. And if you're from Cameroon, or know the country well, we'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, or corrections. So settle in. Let your shoulders relax. Let the light dim. And let your thoughts soften, like fog settling over a quiet savanna. This is everything you need, and everything you probably don't need, to know about Cameroon. Geography and location. Cameroon is a country in Central Africa, though some would also place it in West Africa. It sits at the meeting point between the western and central parts of the continent, like a hinge between regions. This gives Cameroon a little bit of everything: beaches on the coast, mountains in the west, rainforest in the south, grasslands in the center, and dry plains in the north. It shares land borders with 6 countries. To the west lies Nigeria, with which Cameroon shares its longest border. To the east, Chad and the Central African Republic. To the south, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and the Republic of the Congo. On its western edge, Cameroon meets the Atlantic Ocean, more specifically the Bight of Biafra, which is part of the Gulf of Guinea. Cameroon's coastline is not very long compared to some countries, about 400 kilometers, but it's enough for beaches, harbors, and coastal trade. The port city of Douala sits right on the water, serving as the country's commercial capital. If you were to look at Cameroon on a map, you'd notice that the shape of the country is tall and slightly triangular, like a wedge. It stretches from the equator in the south, all the way up into the Sahel, near the edge of the Sahara Desert. This gives Cameroon an unusual range of climates and ecosystems, more than most countries of its size. In fact, Cameroon is sometimes called Africa in miniature, because within its borders you can find nearly all the landscapes of the continent: rainforests, deserts, mountains, savannas, wetlands, and even volcanic highlands. This nickname is often repeated in guidebooks and geography classes, and while it may be a little dramatic, it is not entirely inaccurate. Cameroon is a medium-sized country, with a total area of about 475,000 square kilometers. That makes it the 53rd largest country in the world. It's slightly bigger than Sweden, slightly smaller than Spain, and a little over half the size of South Africa. Its full name is the Republic of Cameroon. In French, that becomes La République du Cameroun, and in English, simply Cameroon. The name comes from the Portuguese word cameros, meaning shrimp. When Portuguese explorers first arrived on the coast in the 15th century, they found the Wouri River teeming with shrimp. They named the river Rio dos Cameros, the river of shrimp. Over time, the name was extended to the land itself. And over centuries, the spelling shifted into the modern form, Cameroon. The country's highest point is Mount Cameroon, which rises to 4,040 meters above sea level. It's an active volcano and the highest mountain in West and Central Africa. On clear days, it can be seen from the sea, looming above the coastal plains like a silent sentinel. The volcano still erupts from time to time, sending lava down its slopes, though not often enough to disrupt daily life for most people. Hikers climb it. Scientists study it. Locals tell stories about it. The lowest point, like in many countries with a coast, is sea level along the Atlantic Ocean. The landscape between these two extremes includes wide river basins, rolling plateaus, and mountain ridges. Cameroon's longest river is the Sanaga River, which flows from the central highlands toward the Atlantic Ocean. The Sanaga is used for hydroelectric power, irrigation, and transport. Other rivers, like the Benue and the Logwan, flow northward and eventually connect to the Lake Chad Basin, where water becomes scarcer and the air drier. There are no very large natural lakes in Cameroon, but the country is home to Lake Nyos, a small but historically significant crater lake. In 1986, Lake Nyos experienced a rare natural disaster known as a limnic eruption. A cloud of carbon dioxide, stored in the lake's depths, suddenly escaped and suffocated over 1,700 people in nearby villages. It was a reminder that even the calmest waters can sometimes hold hidden dangers. Cameroon gained full independence in 1960 from France, and later united with a formerly British-administered region in 1961 to form the present-day country. But more about that in the next part, when we explore its history. For now, we stay in the present, gently tracing coastlines and mountain ridges, rivers and borders, through a land that contains many landscapes within just one country. This is Cameroon, quietly complex, geographically rich. A country with many shapes, many climates, and many names. Nature and population. Now that we know where Cameroon is and what its borders and landscapes look like, it's time to take a closer look at what lives there. The plants, the animals, and the people. Because Cameroon stretches from the equator to the edge of the Sahara, its natural environments vary widely. In the south, you'll find dense rainforests full of tall trees, thick vines, and constant humidity. These forests are part of the Greater Congo Basin rainforest, the second largest tropical forest system in the world, after the Amazon. The air here is moist, the soil is red, and the light filters in through layers of green. In the center, the forests thin out and give way to savanna, wide, grassy plains with scattered trees. This is the land of long dry seasons and heavy rains. It's where most of the country's farming takes place. There are villages, small towns, and roads that stretch across the fields. Further north, the land becomes drier, the grass is shorter, and the trees more sparse. Eventually, the climate becomes Sahelian, semi-arid, dusty, and hot. Here, water is precious and rivers may flow only part of the year. In the far north, just below Lake Chad, the land flattens out. The sky seems bigger here. Cameroon is home to an impressive range of wildlife. In the forests, you'll find gorillas, chimpanzees, forest elephants, and hundreds of bird species. In the savanna, lions, giraffes, hippos, and antelopes roam. Some of these species are endangered, and several national parks and reserves have been established to protect them. But like many places in the world, habitat loss and poaching remain challenges. The country also contains many different ecosystems in a relatively small space. This is one reason why Cameroon is sometimes referred to as one of the most ecologically diverse countries in Africa. You can, in theory, stand on a black sand beach in the morning, hike through a rainforest in the afternoon, and fall asleep near a windswept savanna before nightfall. But it's not only nature that's diverse. Cameroon's population is just as varied. As of the most recent estimates, the country has around 28 million people, making it roughly the 50th most populous country in the world. That places it in the same range as countries like Nepal, Venezuela, or Australia, though the comparisons are more about numbers than lifestyle. Cameroon's population is growing steadily, with a relatively young median age and high birth rates. Cities are expanding. Rural areas are changing. Still, much of the population lives in small towns and farming communities, where daily life follows the rhythm of seasons and sun. One of the most notable features of Cameroon's population is its linguistic and ethnic diversity. The country is home to over 250 distinct languages, making it one of the most linguistically diverse countries on Earth. These languages belong to several major language families, including Bantu, Semi-Bantu, and Chadic. Many Cameroonians are multilingual, speaking a local language at home, another in the market, and French or English in school or government settings. Yes, Cameroon has two official languages, French and English. This is a legacy of colonial history, which we'll explore more in the next part. Today, about 80% of the population lives in Francophone regions, while around 20% live in Anglophone regions, primarily in the West. This linguistic divide has been a source of political tension in recent decades and remains a sensitive issue. The demonym, the word for someone from Cameroon, is Cameroonian. One Cameroonian, many Cameroonians. It is used for all citizens, regardless of region, language, or ethnicity. There are dozens of ethnic groups in the country. Among the largest are the Fong, the Bamalik, the Fulani, also called Pearl, the Bedi Pawan, the Kurda, and many others. Some groups are concentrated in the mountains, others along the coast, still others near the northern plains or southern forests. Each group has its own languages, clothing styles, musical traditions, and ways of life. Despite this diversity, Cameroonians often refer to their country as one and indivisible, a phrase that reflects aspiration as much as reality. Cameroon is also religiously diverse. The majority of the population is Christian, particularly in the southern and western regions. Islam is practiced primarily in the north, among groups such as the Fulani. There are also followers of traditional African religions, often practiced alongside Christianity or Islam. Religious coexistence is generally peaceful, though not without occasional tension. The country's currency is the Central African CFA franc, shared with several neighboring countries. It is pegged to the euro and tends to be stable. $1 is worth about 600 CFA francs, though this rate may vary slightly over time. Banknotes feature images of farmers, scientists, and stylized African patterns. Cameroon's largest city is Douala, located on the coast. It's a port city, commercial hub, and home to around 4 to 5 million people. It is busy, humid, and filled with markets, motorbikes, and noise. The capital city is Yaoundé, located further inland and at higher elevation. Yaoundé is quieter, greener, and more administrative. Government ministries, embassies, and universities are based there. Other major cities include Garoua in the north, Bafoussam in the west, and Bamenda, a center of the Anglophone population. These cities vary in size, language, and culture, reflecting the country's broader diversity. So, Cameroon is a place of many voices, many climates, many communities. It is a country where rainforest meets desert, where French meets English, and where people live among mountains, rivers, and trees. And that is just the beginning. Politics and the economy. Cameroon is officially known as the Republic of Cameroon. It is a unitary presidential republic, which means it has a central government and a president who serves as both head of state and head of government. There is a parliament, a constitution, and elections. But in practice, political power in Cameroon is concentrated, highly concentrated. Since 1982, the president of Cameroon has been Paul Biya. That means he has been in power for over 40 years, making him one of the longest-serving heads of state in the world. He was re-elected in 2018 at the age of 85, in an election that was officially declared fair, though criticized by opposition groups and international observers for irregularities. The president appoints ministers, judges, governors, and even mayors in some cases. Cameroon does have a multi-party system, and opposition parties exist, but the ruling party, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, or CPDM, has remained dominant for decades. In practical terms, political change happens slowly and often behind closed doors. The parliament consists of two houses, the National Assembly and the Senate. Both play roles in lawmaking, but their influence is limited when compared to the executive branch. The judiciary is officially independent, but often seen as politically influenced. Cameroon is divided into 10 regions, each with a governor appointed by the president. 2 of these regions, the Northwest and Southwest, are Anglophone. The rest are Francophone. The tension between these groups is not just linguistic, but also political and cultural. In recent years, there has been an ongoing conflict in the Anglophone regions, where some groups have demanded greater autonomy or even full independence. The situation is complex, involving historical grievances, questions of identity, and the role of language in public life. Government crackdowns, protests, and violence have made parts of the West unstable. Thousands have been displaced. Dialogue continues, but slowly. Despite these challenges, Cameroon has remained intact. Its institutions function. Daily life for most citizens continues. Now let us turn to the economy. Cameroon has one of the strongest economies in Central Africa, but that strength is uneven. The country is rich in natural resources, including oil, gas, timber, cocoa, coffee, and minerals, but much of the population still works in subsistence agriculture. The economy is often described as dual, modern in some sectors, informal in others. The country's gross domestic product, GDP, is moderate. Depending on the year, Cameroon ranks between 90th and 100th in the world. GDP per capita, which gives a sense of individual income, places the country in the lower middle income category. Not among the poorest, but far from wealthy. About 70% of the labor force works in agriculture, producing food for local use and crops for export. Cocoa and coffee are grown in the central and western regions. Cotton comes from the north. Bananas, palm oil, and pineapples grow in the humid south. Much of this is done by smallholder farmers with limited tools and infrastructure. The industrial sector includes oil production, aluminum refining, food processing, and construction materials. Most industry is based in Douala, where ships come and go, loading goods and unloading supplies. Oil has provided income to the state, but much of the population has seen little benefit. Corruption and inefficiency are common concerns. Cameroon also exports timber, which comes from its southern rainforests. This is a source of income, but also of environmental concern. Illegal logging, deforestation, and habitat loss threaten biodiversity and long-term sustainability. Tourism exists but is modest. Political instability and infrastructure challenges have limited growth. Still, the country has potential: beaches, mountains, national parks, wildlife, and cultural festivals. Cameroon is a member of several international organizations, including the African Union, the United Nations, and the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa, CEMAC. Through CEMAC, it shares a currency, the CFA franc, with other countries in the region. This helps keep inflation low, but limits the country's monetary independence. The Human Development Index, or HDI, places Cameroon around 150th in the world, depending on the year. This reflects life expectancy, education, and income levels. Life expectancy is around 60 to 65 years. Literacy rates are improving, especially among young people, but many rural areas still have limited access to quality schooling and healthcare. There is also a growing youth population, with many young Cameroonians seeking jobs in cities or abroad. Unemployment and underemployment are high. For many, the informal sector, street vending, small shops, transport, is the only option. And what do people Google about Cameroon? They search for the Cameroon national football team, known as the Indomitable Lions. They search for Mount Cameroon and for Bia's age. They ask, why are there 2 languages in Cameroon? They look up maps, recipes, and weather. Some look for business opportunities. Others simply want to know, where is Cameroon? And in those searches, the quiet curiosity of the world continues. Cameroon is not loud, but it is there, with markets and motorbikes, rivers and forests, parliaments and poetry. A country of many voices, speaking in many tongues. The history of Cameroon, from the earliest times to colonial rule. The story of Cameroon begins long before it was called Cameroon, long before maps, borders, or written records. Like many parts of Africa, its earliest history is told through archaeology, oral tradition, and the slow traces of human settlement. The first people to live in the region were likely hunter-gatherers, moving through forests and grasslands, leaving behind stone tools, pottery fragments, and traces of fire. These earliest inhabitants may have lived in the area tens of thousands of years ago. Their descendants include the Baka and Bakola peoples, often called pygmy groups, who still live in Cameroon's southern rainforests today. Later came the arrival of Bantu-speaking peoples, part of one of the most significant human migrations in history. Over centuries, they moved from western Central Africa eastward and southward, bringing agriculture, ironworking, and new languages. In Cameroon, they settled throughout the southern and central regions, establishing communities, clearing forests, and growing crops. In the northern parts of the country, a different pattern emerged. The land here was drier, more open. Over time, Sahelian kingdoms began to form. Among the most prominent was the Kingdom of Kanem-Bornu, which at its height controlled trade across the Lake Chad region. Parts of what is now northern Cameroon fell under its influence. By the 13th and 14th centuries, new political entities began to appear in the west and north. Among them were the Takar kingdoms in the highlands, the Bamaun kingdom near present-day Fumbin, and a series of Fulani chiefdoms further north. These were not empires in the European sense. They were more flexible, more personal. Power rested with chiefs and kings, but also with councils, elders, and lineages. Islam began spreading into northern Cameroon during these centuries, first through trade, then through scholarship, and finally through conquest. By the early 1800s, a major event reshaped the region. The Fulani Jihads, led by Muslim reformers seeking to purify and spread the faith. In Cameroon, this led to the creation of the Adamawa Emirate, which extended over much of the north. Towns like Ngaoundra became centers of learning and Islamic governance. Meanwhile, along the Atlantic coast, different dynamics were at play. For centuries, the region now known as Cameroon's coast had been part of extensive trade networks. Ivory, gold, slaves, and spices moved through the region, carried by canoe, foot, and sail. In 1472, Portuguese explorers arrived. They entered the estuary of what is now the Wouri River, and upon finding it full of shrimp, they named it Rio dos Cameros, the River of Shrimp. This name would eventually become Cameroon. Over the following centuries, other European powers followed. The Dutch, British, and French all traded along the coast. They did not settle at first. Instead, they built trading posts, exchanged goods with local rulers, and took part in the transatlantic slave trade. African leaders controlled the terms of trade and maintained their own systems of governance inland. The most prominent coastal trading communities were the Douala people, based near present-day Douala. They acted as middlemen between Europeans and the interior, controlling access to inland trade routes and speaking both local languages and European tongues. By the mid-19th century, the nature of European involvement began to change. Missionaries arrived. Treaties were signed. Pressure grew. Then, in 1884, Cameroon officially became a German colony, Cameroon, following the signing of a treaty between German explorers and local chiefs near Douala. This marked the beginning of formal European colonialism in Cameroon. The Berlin Conference, held in the same year, confirmed Germany's claim. German rule lasted from 1884 to 1916. During this time, the colonial administration built roads, railways, and plantations, especially for rubber, bananas, and cocoa. The Germans imposed taxes, forced labor, and new legal systems. Resistance occurred, sometimes openly, sometimes quietly. But the infrastructure they built, roads, ports, and rail lines, would remain even after they were gone. World War I changed everything. Germany lost its colonies, and Cameroon was divided between Britain and France under League of Nations mandates. The larger, eastern portion became French Cameroon. The smaller, western strip bordering Nigeria became British Cameroons and was administered as part of British Nigeria. This division would shape Cameroon's future. 2 languages, 2 legal systems, 2 colonial legacies, and eventually 2 visions for independence. But those would come later. For now, we leave Cameroon in the early 20th century, split in 2, governed from afar, yet still deeply rooted in its many local histories. Kingdoms, chieftaincies, oral traditions, trade routes, and family ties continued as they had for generations. Colonialism changed Cameroon, but it did not erase it. From independence to the Cameroon of today. As the world changed after World War II, so too did Cameroon. The colonial era was ending. Slowly, unevenly, but steadily. In 1946, the League of Nations mandates that had divided Cameroon were converted into United Nations Trust territories. France and Britain still administered their respective zones, French Cameroon and British Cameroons. But the goal now, at least officially, was to prepare these territories for self-rule. In French Cameroon, political movements began to grow. The most prominent was the Union de Populations du Cameroun, or UPC. Founded in 1948, the UPC called for full independence and unification of all Cameroonian territory. But its demands, and its Marxist leanings, led to tensions with the French authorities. In 1955, the UPC was banned, and an armed struggle began. This conflict, sometimes referred to as the Cameroonian War of Independence, lasted several years. French forces carried out harsh counterinsurgency operations, especially in the western regions. Thousands of people died. Villages were destroyed. And the conflict, though not widely known internationally, left deep scars. Eventually, France moved toward granting independence, but not to the UPC. Instead, it supported more moderate, pro-French leaders. On January 1, 1960, French Cameroon became an independent country. The Republic of Cameroon, with Amadou Ahidjo as its first president. Ahidjo was a Muslim from the north, calm in demeanor, methodical in approach, and loyal to France. But independence was only partial. British Cameroons, the Western Strip, remained under British control. This region was then divided into Northern Cameroons and Southern Cameroons, both administered from Nigeria. In 1961, a UN-organized plebiscite was held. The people of Northern Cameroons voted to join Nigeria. The people of Southern Cameroons voted to join the Republic of Cameroon. On October 1, 1961, the 2 territories were united, and the country became the Federal Republic of Cameroon. French Cameroon and Southern British Cameroons would now form one country, with 2 official languages, French and English. This moment of unification brought hope, but also complexity. For the first decade, Cameroon maintained a federal system, giving the English-speaking region some degree of autonomy. But in 1972, President Ahidjo abolished the federal structure through a national referendum, creating a unitary state, the United Republic of Cameroon. The Anglophone regions lost their regional government and became administrative provinces. Over time, French became increasingly dominant in education, government, and public life. Ahidjo ruled until 1982, overseeing a highly centralized one-party state. He maintained close ties to France, developed infrastructure, and kept tight control over political dissent. Then, in a carefully managed transition, he resigned, citing health reasons, and handed power to his hand-picked successor, Paul Biya. Biya, who had served as prime minister under Ahidjo, took office as president in 1982. The transition appeared smooth, but tensions soon emerged. Ahidjo went into exile. Rumors of plots and disagreements circulated. In 1984, a failed coup attempt by elements of the Presidential Guard led to a crackdown. Biya consolidated his authority. Ahidjo died in exile in 1989, and Biya remained firmly in control. For the next few decades, Cameroon remained politically stable, but also tightly controlled. The ruling party, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, dominated elections. Opposition was tolerated but constrained. The country held multi-party elections starting in the 1990s, but Biya continued to win, again and again. Elections were held in 1992, 1997, 2004, 2011, and 2018. Each time, Biya was declared the winner. Each time, opposition parties alleged fraud, irregularities, or intimidation. And each time, the political system carried on without major change. Under Biya, Cameroon remained officially bilingual, but many Anglophone Cameroonians felt marginalized. French was the language of power. Government services were centralized. Legal and educational systems favored the Francophone model. In 2016, protests erupted in the Anglophone regions. Lawyers and teachers demanded equal treatment, preservation of common law courts, and recognition of English-speaking schools. The government responded with arrests and force. What began as peaceful demonstrations escalated into an armed conflict between government forces and separatist movements, who declared an independent state called Ambazonia. The conflict continues to this day. Thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced. Villages have been burned. Schools have been closed. Attempts at dialogue have been made, but with limited progress. At the same time, Boko Haram, a militant group operating in Nigeria, has carried out attacks in northern Cameroon, particularly in the far north region. The government has deployed troops and the violence has decreased, but the threat remains. Despite these challenges, Cameroon continues. Its institutions function. Roads are built. Schools operate. Trade continues. Football matches are played. Children are born. Markets open in the morning. And in the evening, homes fill with light, music, and the scent of spice. Cameroon's modern history is one of continuity, sometimes peaceful, sometimes uneasy, of unification, division, and persistence. It is a country that has endured wars, elections, transitions, and trials. Quietly, unevenly, but always moving forward. Cameroon today. To understand Cameroon today, you must understand how varied it is. Not just in its geography and languages, but in its climates, communities, and ways of living. It is a country where no single pattern fits the whole, where the North is not like the South, and where what is true in one region may not be in another. Let us begin with the climate. Cameroon has what geographers call a climatic staircase. In the south, the climate is equatorial, hot, humid, and rainy almost all year. The air is heavy with moisture. Rain falls in long, soaking showers. The land is green, and the sky is often clouded. As you move north, the climate becomes tropical, then savanna, and eventually Sahelian, hot and dry with sparse rainfall. The north has a long dry season and a short, intense rainy season. The temperature can rise above 40 degrees Celsius, and the landscape changes from forest to grassland to scrub. Along the coast, especially near Douala, the air is both hot and humid, with some of the highest rainfall in Africa. In the west, in the highlands near Bamenda and Bafoussam, the climate is cooler and more temperate. In the far west, Mount Cameroon towers over the landscape, often wrapped in mist. On its slopes, volcanic soil supports rich agriculture. Now let us look at how people live. Cameroon is about 45% urban and 55% rural. This means that most people still live in villages, small towns, or farming communities. In rural areas, people grow their own food: cassava, maize, millet, plantains, and yams. Many raise goats, chickens, or cows. Houses are made from mud bricks, concrete blocks, or timber, depending on the region. Roofs may be tin, tile, or thatch. In the cities, life is faster, louder, and more crowded. Douala, the economic hub, is a city of markets, traffic, and humidity. Yaoundé, the capital, sits on rolling hills. Government ministries, embassies, and universities cluster along its tree-lined streets. Other cities, like Garoua, Marua, and Bia, are regional centers, each with its own flavor, language, and pace. Urban neighborhoods vary greatly. Some are leafy and planned. Others are informal settlements, with narrow alleys, shared toilets, and limited infrastructure. Access to electricity and running water is better in cities, but still not universal. Cameroonians are resilient and resourceful. Daily life involves improvisation. When roads are bad, people walk. When the power cuts, they light candles. When prices rise, they adjust. Most work is informal: selling vegetables, fixing motorbikes, tailoring clothes, offering haircuts, or transporting goods on motorcycle taxis known as benskins. Cameroon is multilingual, and most people speak several languages. In the south, a person might speak a local Bantu language at home, French at school, and Pidgin English with friends. In the northwest, it might be the reverse. In the north, Fulfulde, Arabic, and Chadian languages are common. English and French are both used in government, but which one dominates depends on where you are. Clothing reflects a blend of tradition and modernity. In cities, people wear jeans, t-shirts, and Western-style work clothes. In rural areas and at formal events, you'll see colorful wax print fabrics, embroidered robes called babous, and headscarves. Tailors are everywhere, and many people prefer custom-made clothes to store-bought ones. Food is a central part of daily life. Dishes vary by region, but common ingredients include cassava, maize, rice, groundnuts, plantains, fish, and spices. In the West, people enjoy a chew, a yellow sauce made from cocoyams. In the North, millet porridge and grilled meat are common. In the South, eru, a leafy stew, and ndole, a bitterleaf and peanut dish, are favorites. Meals are often shared from a common bowl. Eating is done with the right hand or with a spoon. Food is prepared fresh, and meals take time. Street food is popular: grilled fish, roasted corn, fried dough, and fruit sold at roadside stalls. Religion is part of everyday life. Churches and mosques are found in every city and village. Religious holidays, both Christian and Muslim, are celebrated across the country. People may begin their day with prayer, attend a service, or visit a shrine. In some areas, traditional beliefs are blended into religious practice, honoring ancestors, consulting healers, or following local rituals. Music is everywhere. You'll hear makasa and bikutsi from speakers on street corners, drums at ceremonies, choirs in churches. Radio stations play a mix of local hits: Congolese rumba, Nigerian pop, French ballads, and American hip-hop. Dancing is spontaneous. Rhythms are complex. Lyrics often mix languages. Music is a way to celebrate, protest, remember, and gather. And amid all this, life goes on. People go to school, to market, to work, to prayer. They tell jokes. They carry water. They braid hair. They fix tires. They watch football. Cameroon today is many things: green and dusty, loud and quiet, simple and layered. It is a country where a teacher might walk to school in the morning, passing a goat on the road, where a lawyer argues in French while thinking in Bassa, where a grandmother cooks over a wood fire while a teenager scrolls on a smartphone. It is a country full of contrast and continuity. Visiting Cameroon. If you're thinking of visiting Cameroon, you're not alone, but you won't be surrounded by tourists either. Cameroon is not a major international destination. It doesn't have large resorts or long lines of tour buses. But for those who go, there's a quiet sense of discovery, of a place that's complex, layered, and still very much itself. Let's begin with the basics. Most travelers need a visa to enter Cameroon. Tourist visas are not issued on arrival and must be obtained in advance from a Cameroonian embassy or consulate. The process requires filling out forms, providing photos, and showing proof of accommodation or invitation. It can take time, so if you're planning a trip, it's wise to start early. Vaccinations are also required. Most visitors must show proof of yellow fever vaccination upon arrival. Other recommended vaccinations include those for typhoid, hepatitis A and B, and sometimes meningitis or rabies, depending on the length and nature of your stay. Malaria prophylaxis is strongly advised. The main entry point for international travelers is Douala International Airport, located near the coast. Yaoundé Nsimilin International Airport, in the inland capital, is another option. There are also border crossings by land from Nigeria, Chad, Central African Republic, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea, though not all are safe or open at all times. Cameroon is, overall, a safe country to visit, especially in the central, western, and southern regions. However, travel to the far north, where Boko Haram has been active, and parts of the Anglophone regions, where separatist conflict continues, is not recommended. Roadblocks, checkpoints, and military presence may be encountered in these areas. Travelers are advised to stay informed and avoid regions where violence has occurred. In cities like Yaoundé, Douala, and Bafoussam, petty crime can occur, pickpocketing, scams, and occasional theft. But violent crime against tourists is rare. As always, caution, local advice, and common sense go a long way. Now let's talk about transportation. Public transport in Cameroon is functional, but not especially fast or comfortable. Buses, shared taxis, and motorcycle taxis, known as benskins, are the most common means of getting around. Roads in major cities are paved, but traffic can be chaotic and signage is limited. In rural areas, roads may be rough or impassable during the rainy season. For longer distances, intercity buses connect major towns. Some are quite comfortable. Others are slow and crowded. Flights between cities are limited and often expensive. Hiring a car with a driver is an option, especially for those who want to explore the countryside. So what is there to see? Cameroon is not short on natural beauty. In the west, you'll find Mount Cameroon, an active volcano that rises over 4,000 meters above sea level. Adventurous travelers can hike to the summit, passing through rainforest, savanna, and ash fields. The climb takes a full day up and down, or 2 days with camping. Near Mount Cameroon lies the town of Bia, a cool, green place once used as a colonial hill station. Further west is Limba, a coastal town with black sand beaches, a botanical garden, and a wildlife center that shelters rescued chimpanzees and gorillas. In the north, for those who can go safely, lies Waza National Park, home to elephants, giraffes, lions, and antelopes. Nearby, the Rumsiki region is known for its dramatic rock formations, traditional villages, and artisanal crafts. The Kapsiki Peak rises like a silent spire from the plains. In the east, you'll find dense tropical rainforest and Lobik National Park, where gorillas and forest elephants roam. The region is remote, humid, and largely untouched by tourism. The west region, around Bafoussam and Fumbin, is known for its cool climate, traditional chiefdoms, palaces, and handicrafts. The Bamaun Kingdom, centered in Fumbin, has a rich cultural heritage and a royal museum housed in a grand building shaped like a double-headed snake. In the center, the capital city of Yaoundé sits among green hills. Visitors may see the National Museum, the cathedral, or one of the many street markets. In Douala, the largest city, the appeal lies more in energy than in specific sites, markets, nightlife, business, and bustle. For travelers interested in people more than landmarks, Cameroon offers encounters. Village chiefs and city artists, tailors and musicians, coffee farmers and market sellers. And what about food? Cameroonian cuisine is hearty, regional, and made from fresh ingredients. In the south, meals may include ndole, a stew made from bitter leaves, peanuts, and fish or meat. In the grass fields, dishes like achu and yellow soup or koki beans are common. Along the coast, you'll find grilled fish with spicy sauce, fried plantains, and jollof rice. Street food is popular and varied. Skewered meat called soya, deep-fried puff-puffs, roasted maize, boiled peanuts, or tapioca pudding. Drinks include palm wine, millet beer, and ginger juice. Bottled water is recommended. Prices in Cameroon are generally low by Western standards, but can vary. In major cities, mid-range hotels may cost around $30-70 per night. Budget options exist but may lack hot water or air conditioning. High-end hotels are rare outside Douala or Yaoundé. There is no real tourist infrastructure. English-speaking guides may be hard to find. Wi-Fi is not always reliable. Things take time. Roads flood. Power cuts happen. But for those who travel slowly, patiently, and with open eyes, Cameroon offers something rare. A country where few things are prepared for tourists, and almost everything is real. Fun facts about Cameroon. Cameroon is a country of many layers, and sometimes, the small details are the ones that stay with you. Here are a few facts, quietly remarkable, slightly unusual, or just curiously specific. Let us begin with a fact about languages. Cameroon is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world. More than 250 local languages are spoken here, from Fula in the north to Awando, Bassa, and Bakweri in the south and west. In many homes, people speak one language with their family, another in the market, and yet another at school. This everyday multilingualism is not seen as unusual. It's just life. And yet, Cameroon is also officially bilingual, with both French and English as national languages. This is rare. Only a handful of countries in the world have two official languages at the national level, and even fewer with such distinct regional divides. In Cameroon, language is not just about words. It's also about history, identity, and politics. Now, a fact about football. Cameroon is deeply passionate about football. The national team, known as the Indomitable Lions, has qualified for the FIFA World Cup more than any other African team, 8 times. In 1990, Cameroon became the first African team to reach the World Cup quarterfinals, after beating Argentina in the opening match and defeating Colombia in extra time. The team lost to England in a close 3-2 game. It was a moment of pride still remembered today. The most famous Cameroonian footballer is Roger Milla, who danced by the corner flag in the 1990 World Cup at the age of 38. He scored again in 1994. At 42 years old, he remains the oldest goalscorer in World Cup history. Others have followed: Samuel Eto'o, Rigobert Song, and many more. In cities and villages alike, children play barefoot in the street, dreaming of becoming the next lion. Now, something from the natural world. Cameroon is home to Lake Nyos, one of only a few lakes in the world known for a rare and deadly phenomenon called a limnic eruption. In 1986, the lake suddenly released a cloud of carbon dioxide stored beneath its surface. The gas descended silently into nearby valleys, suffocating over 1,700 people in their sleep. Since then, the lake has been equipped with degassing pipes to release pressure slowly. It is a quiet lake, but one that holds a powerful memory. Another unusual geographic feature is Mount Cameroon, the highest peak in the country and one of Africa's largest active volcanoes. It last erupted in 2012, and before that in 2000. The mountain rises directly from the coast, and on clear days, its shape dominates the horizon. Locally, it's known as Mongo Mondemi, or Mountain of Greatness. Each year, brave runners take part in the Mount Cameroon Race of Hope, a marathon that includes a steep climb to the summit and back. Now, something about clothing. In the Grassfields region, especially around Fumbin and Bamenda, you'll often see men wearing long, richly embroidered robes called togu or atagu. These were once reserved for royalty or special ceremonies, but today they are worn more widely as symbols of cultural pride. The embroidery is usually bright, yellow, red, white, stitched into black or deep blue cloth, with swirling patterns and symbolic designs. And food? Yes, Cameroon has food that varies by region, but one national dish often mentioned is ndole. It is made from bitter leaf, groundnuts, and sometimes shrimp or beef. The taste is rich, slightly bitter, and very filling. Another staple is fufu, a soft, doughy mass made from cassava, yams, or maize, served with soups or sauces. It is eaten by hand, with the fingers used to scoop and shape. Now, a fact about wildlife. Cameroon is home to some of the world's most endangered primates, including cross-river gorillas and drill monkeys. Many live in protected areas such as Korup National Park, one of the oldest rainforests in Africa. The park contains over 600 species of trees, as well as rare butterflies, birds, and frogs. It is hot, wet, and thick with life, but receives very few visitors. And now a few quiet curiosities. Cameroon's national motto is Paix, Travail, Patrie. Peace, work, fatherland. It appears on coins, official documents, and school walls. Cameroon has 10 regions, each with its own capital. These were once called provinces, but the name was changed in 2008 to reflect decentralization efforts. However, power remains largely centralized. Cameroon is one of the few countries that celebrates both French and English national holidays. Bastille Day is observed. So is Commonwealth Day. It is a small reminder of the country's dual heritage. And that concludes our fun facts. And so we reach the end of our slow, quiet journey through Cameroon. We've walked from the rainforests of the south to the dry plains of the north. We've listened to over 250 languages. We've stood at the foot of a volcano and remembered a lake that once whispered tragedy. We've eaten bitterleaf stew and watched children play football in the street. We've followed history from ancient kingdoms to colonial treaties to today's complex present. Cameroon is not easily summarized. It is many places in one, many voices in one, many paths crossing and diverging, all within a single border. And maybe that's what makes it quietly remarkable. Not that it demands your attention, but that it contains so much without needing to explain itself. It simply exists, green, dusty, humid, and hopeful. A place where people go about their day, in French and English and Awando and Fulfulde and Bassa and more. Where the mountain smokes, the market buzzes, and the rain falls when it wants to. Thank you for listening to Boring Travel and Geography for Sleep. We hope this journey helped you unwind, slow down, and maybe drift into rest. If you'd like more slow, steady episodes like this one, feel free to like, follow, or subscribe. We visit every country in the world, one by one, in no particular order, and never in a hurry. Next time, we'll travel to Uganda, a country of lakes and hills, gorillas and kingdoms, quiet waters and long stories. But for now, let Cameroon fade softly from your thoughts. Let the drums go quiet. Let the grass bend in the wind. Let the day end, and the stars come out over the hills of the west. Good night, or good rest, wherever you are.